Alright, well, I'm sitting in Alberta doing a reset, so I thought I would do a interior video now that the truck is on the road. And more importantly, I think the dash panels, the inside, how we did everything there. These panels are new. I got them made, laid out how I want them, with the gauges where I want them. So I'll drop the steering wheel here. There we go. So some groupings I wanted was fuel pressure and fuel vacuum together. And then the pyro and the boost gauge together. And this boost gauge next to the cable throttle is handy because when you're trying to tweak this cable throttle to get some form of cruise control out of the thing, you can use your boost gauge to kind of guess where you are, so you don't end up going 100 miles an hour when you're not paying attention. And then oil temperature, oil temperature and oil pressure together. Of course, these top four don't really change unless you have two fuel gauges. And then this is the driveline temperatures, 3 in a row. And all the air pressure stuff is down here on these three. This is the gauge for the breathers, the restriction, and then the voltmeters right above the starter button. So I think that made a lot of sense. And then on the switch panel, the way it's set up is I have 7/7. These are very simple: headlight, chicken light, breather lights. So this one is just DOT lights, which you need to get by. Extra lights go on here. And then this switch is just my floor lights and the anti-glare lights. This switch, of course, is fuel tank left and right. And then this switch is hooked into a relay, so when I go to the middle position, it will turn off the clearance lights, just the 5 on the roof. That way, if you're driving in heavy snow, you can shut that off so it's not reflecting off the snow and you can see better. And then if I go to the top, it will turn on the 5 on the roof and my mirror lights just for parking. So if you're sitting somewhere at night idling or whatever, you can flick those on so at least people can see you. And this is my window, the power window. It's converted to electric, but we still use the air label here, even though the switch doesn't quite fit. We had to use a washer to make it work, but it looks pretty good. And then here, it says my suspension's dumped, but that's because we put a new switch in. Or, sorry, not a new switch, but the way the dump valve works is backwards to how they originally were. So when the switch is over here, it's actually in the ride position. And then these two locker here, right now that one's my 5th wheel, but when we put 4-way locks on, this one will run the interaxle and this one will lock both diffs. That way we could get away with everything factory and still run 4-way locks. And then here, this is actually the power to the bunk fan. These trucks would not have had a switch on the dash for you to control the rear HVAC. So we wired this up so you can turn that on from the dash, which is cool. If you want to, say, freeze out your bunk before you go to bed and click that on half an hour before you get parked. That way you don't have to go back in the bunk and mess with anything. And then trailer auxiliary, spotlights, backup lights, of course fan, heated mirrors, and this is a spare. And then with the electric wiper kit, it gets rid of the washer knob. So this is now my engine timer, the shut-off timer. And I'm getting glitter knobs to put on here that'll all be matching and have the company logo on these knobs. The HVAC box is all new cores, new fan, everything. That's from Dirks. I know this looks like a mess. We had this completely gutted. Everything in here was out of the truck, of course, including the main harness. I use these push-on connectors, but you do need to put clamps on the oil and fuel ones, or else they will leak a bit. In fact, I had the fuel pressure line blow off, which was not a good experience. It still smells in here from that, unfortunately. Here are the Dirks wipers, very easy to install. And over here on the switch side, we have this very tidy. Right here, that is the new Dirks fiber optic light, and I just glued it to the back of the shutoff timer. That's just a residential bathroom fan timer that is strung to a relay back there to run the fuel solenoid. And then these Dirks boxes, they fit pretty good depending on what air valves you have in here. If you have the wrong block, it starts getting into these controllers. These controllers are very generic. You can get them at any truck supply place. One thing that is important when you're rebuilding these trucks is test all of your relays. I had 3 relays in this relay block that were shorted out, or like you couldn't trip them at all. They would just melt your wires right off. So it's a good idea to go through, trip all the breakers, make sure they're all working. And if you do have some that are not working, they're easy enough to find replacements. Dirks sells them for an atrocious markup. You can buy them other places for about 1/4 the price. They look a little bit different than factory, so here's one that I replaced. One thing with the new ones is that button is actually really, really long, but you can take an orbital sander and just sand that white button right down flush with the inside of the breaker. And that's very easy to do, and they won't look so ugly poking way out like I've seen on some people's fancy new builds. Yeah, they just look atrocious otherwise. Up here, I had to keep the stainless headliner because I didn't have a red one to replace it with. And then this is the Sony, I think it's the 8100 with CarPlay. It's actually pretty nice, and I have it wired in to my floor lights for the dimmer function on the radio. So when I turn on my floor lights, it dims the radio to night mode. I put the fan in there. Over in the glove box, I put the connection for the CarPlay, and it just runs out down here. That way I can keep my cables tidy. And then in here, I have my good test light, and I still need to get a couple spare relays for the flashers and the headlights to throw in there, just to keep them handy, because you never know when you need them. We left the small hole in, and with these Needler Air Chiefs here with both armrests, I'm still comfortable getting in between the seats. I moved the passenger side over as far as I could without the far armrest hitting the door, and I'm happy with that. But I'm not a big fella. I also like the room you get above the seats with them being low backs. So getting in and out of the bunk's actually not bad at all. And here I put the coat hook back in. I love that coat hook. I think all the trucks should still come with those coat hooks. And back here for the fridge setup, we did this kind of standard thing with the Rainey's fridge and this 3-drawer. And these drawers are spring loaded, so they will not come open on you on the road. So you have to really pull for them to come open. But that's pretty handy. The fridge is nice. I would say I get as much in there as I would in the factory Peterbilt fridge. And then here I put the bunk heater controller, because one thing I was very sure of is I wanted to be able to turn the bunk heater on without having to get inside the truck. So if I open the door, just kneel on the seat, I can turn the bunk heater on without having to take my boots off. And then there's 4 bolts going through the floor of the bunk holding this on, as well as a bunch of brackets that are under the fridge. You can see one of them right here. They hold the fridge in all 4 directions, and then this blue ratchet strap on top, just in case. Right now, I'm not sure. We might come up with something a little more permanent, but this is working for now, and that's all I needed. It doesn't move at all, doesn't shake, doesn't squeak, doesn't make any noise. I added foam in between these and this steel post here. And the rest of this is bog standard. A lot of storage up here. I have extra set of bedding, books, glasses, charging cables, all sorts of random stuff in there. I need a cover for that light, which is coming yet. And on this side, it's the same thing. We completely bypassed the heater controls, so all I have here is the fan, low, medium, high, off, on, and the temperature is all controlled with those switches there. And then just close, dirty laundry. And I haven't really fixed this. The floor on this cabinet hasn't been reinforced like we do, so I just have some random stuff up there for now. So anyway, that's what we did. I also like having a mat right here, because if you do live in the truck for days on end, eventually you spill stuff, and it's a lot easier just to fold this carpet up, shake it out, and put it back in than it is to be vacuuming everything up, especially with this shag carpet. So there we are. Thanks for watching.